But who can heal? Who can heal time? I know you made your mistakes. It's a natural act of imperfect act. And in fact, is it really, really such a crime? In events such as these, when our answers proceeded to riddle, 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 riddle in a rhyme. It's a riddle in a rhyme. All through the obstacles around, it's truly only freedom that surrounds. With every breath, a living voice. With every rest, yes, there is a choice. And to see what you want to see, for it to be there must surely be mountains to climb, cliffs to scale, bridges to build, and we will persevere. And we will persevere. And we will persevere. Of imperfect act, and in fact, is it really, really such a crime? In events such as these, when our answers proceeded to riddle, 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 riddle in a rhyme. It's a riddle in a rhyme. It's a riddle in a, it's a riddle in a. It's a riddle in a, 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 it's a riddle in a rhyme.
Hey guys, Dave Darren here. Good to see you guys. I see some people joined already, so it's kind of cool. We're talking about something different tonight. You know, I know I've been all over the place with this show. UFOs, music. Then we had a couple that wanted to date and stuff like that. Now today I'm talking about animals. So tonight we're going to talk about, I want to talk about your stories too. If you have a story to tell, then call up 480-236-2111. Talk about, you know, the beginnings of why you're interested in animals. If you have a cat, dog, turtle, snake, At one point, I had actually a plated lizard. So I've had some unusual animals too. You can see in the back, I've got Callie here on the chair, sleeping, chilling out. Got the dog here, Willy. So we're going to talk about them. I'll tell you how we get involved with dogs and animals. But tonight, if you want to talk about, if you want to share a picture of your dog or cat or turtle or snake or tarantula, then send it to me. I'm on Facebook Live now as well, so I can get your picture, download it, and share with the audience. I do have some pictures from some of the people who sent me some pictures earlier, so I'll share them with you as well. But again, if you want to call up, 480-236-2111 and share your story. So I will tell you how I got started with animals. And it started with my parents. And my father had this dog, and I vaguely remember him when I was like a little infant. And what was his name? Some of this is going to come back to me during the show here, because I don't rehearse shows, and you guys probably know I don't. But I remember he was a Great Dane, so he was a huge dog. Especially he's a huge dog when I'm a little tiny infant crawling on the floor trying to learn how to walk when the dog's already walking on all four legs. I'm sorry, wait. It was a boxer. What am I talking about? It was a boxer. Not quite as big as a Great Dane, but a boxer. And by the way, our dog that passed away, Kim, the dog she liked the least was a boxer because they kind of jump up. Chows don't like that. So what was his name? I can't remember his name. But my father had it. It was his dog, and I guess him and his mother's dog. So I remember that we didn't have that dog a long time. And then when I became, I think it was like 10 or 11 years old, we got our first animal. We got a cat. My parents have always had Siamese cats. And Siamese cats are a little bit different. When they cry, they go, they sound like that, very deep, like a nasally throat type of sound. If you have a Siamese cat, you probably know that sound. And I remember my mother like passing a vacuum or something, cat's in the way, she shushes them out of the way. And then the cat's yelling at my mom. I remember that. That cat used to yell at my mom. It used to vocalize and yell. And it had a fight with my dad all the time. So I don't know. My dad and that cat somehow or another didn't get along. So the cat was very spiteful. And I just say dog. The cat was very spiteful. By the way, his name was King Tut. King Tutankhamun. What's that? What's the whole name of King Tut? I don't remember. But his name was King Tut. So I remember he used to claw into the ground and of course rip up carpets and rugs. And at that time, people didn't realize, I guess, to get a scratching post, because we've got cats, we've got multiple scratching posts in every room. So wherever the cat wants to scratch, it's got a scratching post. If you have a cat, by the way, and it's scratching, a couple things you can do. Never declaw a cat. My parents did that with our first cat, King Tut, because he was clawing up stuff. And they declawed him. You should never do that. It's cruel to the animal. And my parents know that now. And they even talked to me at one point. They said, you have cats, you don't declaw them? And I said, absolutely not. And they said, good for you, don't do it. We should have never done that. But if you got a cat, a couple things to do so you guys know, because I learned this from adopting cats. If you have a cat, make sure you put a scratching post. I think they said almost in every room. Maybe that's a little excessive. You don't have to do it in every room, because depending on how many rooms you have in the house, that can become complicated. But in the room that the cat sort of lingers in, make sure you have a scratching post around. And they always say when you have a single cat, get 2 litter boxes. If you have 2 cats, get 3 litter boxes. Always 1 litter box beyond the amount of cats you have. I heard this somewhere, but we do that. So we have 2 cats, so we got 3 litter boxes scattered around the house, and it works out really well. I don't know, it probably would work out well with 2. I don't know why I was told that. I don't remember who told me that, but that's what they say. So our first cat was King Tut, and he lived, I think, till 11 years old. And I remember he died the first year I was in college. And man, I was wiped out. And it was the first year of college, I was actually on what's called probation, because my grade point average, I think, was like a 2.6. So I went to Drexel University in Philadelphia, and they threw me on probation. And I was kind of wiped out because we lost our cat during the school year, my first year in college. So it's hard to be in college the first year. I'm still living at home, and our cat died, so it kind of wiped me out. So it was the first time that I experienced a loss, because my grandmother was still alive at that point. My grandfather, I think, was still, all my grandparents were still alive, except for my father's father, who died at a really young age. But all my grandparents were still alive, aunts and uncles. I didn't experience any death at all until the death of that cat. So I was wiped out. In fact, towards the end, because he had a problem with his kidneys were shutting down. I remember I was actually feeding that cat with my fingers and putting food into that cat's mouth, liquid food. Same as I did with Kim very recently when our Chow passed away. Chow Shar-pei named Kim passed away. I remember I did that with our first cat. So then after that, my parents got two other Siamese. They got Pharaoh, was a male named after Farrah Fawcett, but the male equivalent, and we got Sabrina. And Sabrina was a Siamese cat. So was Pharaoh. They're very different. Siamese cats come in chocolate point, seal point. Seal points are more blue. Chocolate points more brown. So Sabrina was the one that was off the wall. This was a little tiny, skinny cat. And it was like ballistic. It would shoot all over the place. Why? And it did this for a lot of years. So that was a fun couple cats we had. And then, of course, I moved to Japan for a while. And let me grab some water here. Anyone have anything to say? Arizona, good evening. Dave, good to see you. Terry, good to see Terry saying hello, Dave. David, she gives me the formal. You can call me Dave, by the way. I'm not as formal as David, so call me Dave if you like. So I moved to Japan. By the way, I had an experience with a dog in Japan. And this is kind of a really sad experience, but you got to deal with the reality of life. And I'm going to try not to get sad about the loss of our animals tonight. But I'm in Japan. I was single, living in a country where I spoke a little bit of Japanese, not enough to really get by, but I was there living alone, isolated. I went to the gym, which is called a Kempo Center, to stay in shape. I found a great buddy of mine today. My best friend is a Japanese guy that still lives in Japan, named Mitsumori, I always forget his last name. Kawamada. Mitsumori Kawamada. I don't remember the last name all the time. Great friend. I should remember his last name, right? But I just call him by his first name. He was a really cool guy. A lot of karaoke. He liked, who was he into all the time? Of course, Eagles. So, but by the way, to get back to the dog, we had a Shiba Inu in Japan. I had a Shiba Inu, but it was a stray dog that I kind of adopted. I would feed him. He would come in periodically, not that often. I was living in an apartment, which in Japan is called a shataku. I was living in the shataku. I would feed him. When it would rain, I would let him stay in the house and keep dry and all that. So he would come in periodically when he felt like it. And one day he kind of vanished. And I had no idea what happened. And I did find him on the side of the road. He was dead. And I buried him in something I really cared about. I wrapped him up and I buried him. And Mitsumori was with me. It was a sad moment. I actually gave up. I was not a vegetarian at that point. I'm sort of not a vegetarian now, but I've cut back a lot on meats. But I remember during that time period, I thought, I got to give something up in memory of this dog that I cared about a lot, because it brought me through some rather sad times living isolated in Japan. And so I gave up eating meat for like 1 month, and I really devoted myself to not doing that. Even though in Japan, a lot of people eat meat, the quality of beef is very high grade, low fat content, delicious meat. And you know that if you buy any meat from a Japanese market wherever you live. So then I came back to the States, got married to my wife, who I met in Japan. We got married in Japan by a justice of the peace. Mitsumori was my best man. My wife had her twin sister, I think, is the best lady or whatever it was. And we got married in Japan. We came back to the States. We got married here again. Her whole family came over, dressed in kimonos. It was a really cool ceremony. And then within, I think, about a year or 2 years, we got our first dog, Jody, who was a Chow Shar-pei, that's our last dog. Shepherd Rottweiler mix. Great dog, female, Jody. And that was her SPCA name, or previous owner named her, and when they turned her in, they gave the name. And it was funny, when we got that dog, I remember the very first night, I decided, well, the first night I'm going to leave her in our garage. It's not a cruel thing to do. It was the very first night we got her. She was getting acquainted, and we decided she was crying, didn't know us and all that. So whether you think it's a good idea or not, we had a 3-car garage, so we put her in there with a nice bed and all that. I'm sorry, we didn't do that at night. Let me take that back. We didn't do it at night because we thought about this and we thought it was going to be too cruel. What we did is we had to go out the next day shopping for dog food. So we went out, and at that point we put her in the garage because we had to go out to get dog food, and we didn't know how she would do on her own in the house alone. So we put her in the garage. We came back like 45 minutes later, and there's a hole chewed through the drywall, and her nose is sticking out into the living room, because we had the garage, and next to it was like the bottom floor had sort of some type of a living room, whatever you want to call it. My wife had her piano down there. We came home and the dog's nose is, excuse me, a little bit of, I'm drinking water here and talking. You build up a little bit of a belch, right? I'm not being an animal, it's just a belch. We saw his nose sticking through the wall. And you would think you'd get angry, but it was too funny to see the dog's nose sticking through the drywall. An easy fix, you patch up the drywall. And from that day, the next day, we went to back to the SPCA in Delaware. That's where we lived at the time. And we picked up another dog to keep her company. We got a collie named Sabra, S-A-B-R-A. I forget what the name stood for. I think it stands for Sunshine in Native American English. So we got her. You're supposed to bring the dog that you're going to introduce them to the SPCA, and we did that. So we brought Jody to the SPCA to meet Sabra. They're walking around. They look like they're going to get along great. Brought them to the house, and they got along great. But about 2 days later, my wife calls me up on the phone. She says, the dogs had a fight. But then I said, well, what's the result? And she said, well, I separated them, and they're okay now. It seemed like dogs seem to need to get a hierarchy. If you have dogs, if you have one dog and you ever think about getting two, there's going to be some kind of a hierarchy arrangement where they're going to have to know who's the alpha dog and who's the beta dog, and they'll maybe have a little quick fight. Hopefully it won't be a vicious fight, and it wasn't, because our Rottweiler Shepherd could have absolutely devastated the collie, who was 50 pounds, and our Shepherd Rottweiler was 90 pounds. So of course there's going to be and Rottweilers are kind of, they'll take care of themselves as well as a Shepherd, and we got the Shepherd Rottweiler combined into one animal. So it was one quick fight. After that, they got along great. Except it was funny because the collie didn't really like Jody that much. So every time she would play like ball, she would be an amazing player. I would play with her constantly, throw the ball, and I have a pretty good arm because I played baseball. I would throw the ball far into this lake as far as I could throw it. She would swim out, and the collie would follow her to the edge of the lake, biting her neck, like hurting her. Not hurting, I mean hurting, like the collies do. They hurt animals. She would nibble on her neck and not want her to go out there to be out of the realm of where she's supposed to be as a herded animal. And then when she came back to land, when she finished swimming and came back to land, the collie would be all over her, biting her neck, pulling her back. So it was a funny thing to see. It was really a funny thing. And actually, I should have brought that dog on David Letterman's Stupid Pet Tricks, the Rottweiler Shepherd, because she would climb up one of those slides that the kids slide down. She would climb up the ladder and then slide down the slide. And at the very end of the slide would be the Sabra, the collie, ready to bite her neck because she's not supposed to be doing that because she's supposed to be part of the herd, right? But it was a funny thing, climbing up the ladder, sliding down the ladder. At the end of the ladder, the collie's there barking at her, biting her neck as she's coming down the ladder. And I'll tell you how smart Rottweilers and Shepherds are. It was kind of funny because I would try to throw her off with my scent. So, of course, dogs know your scent because supposedly they have like 1,000 times better smelling capability versus humans. I think it's 1,000, believe it or not. So I threw the ball far into the lake, and of course she's not looking because she's looking to get the ball. And when she turns around to face me, she's looking for me constantly. So a couple times I hid, and of course she found me instantly. So a couple times what I did is I thought I'm going to throw her scent off. So I had flip-flops off at this park. So I would throw the flip-flops in one direction, and I would run the other direction without her seeing me go in these different directions. And when she turned around facing me, she couldn't find me. She'd get on the shoreline coming, and she would find me. The shoes would never throw her off. I took shoes, sweatshirt or t-shirt or whatever I had, clothes in a pile to distract her from some of my scent being here. Never worked. She always used to find me instantaneously. She was a great dog. She lived till, I think my wife was even asking me today, how long did Jody live till? And I think she lived till 13 or 14 as a 90-pound Shepherd Rottweiler. Sabra lived till 17, the collie. So those were our first two dogs. And let's see, I'll read some of the comments here. Let's see. Sandy says, for me to listen to this, difficult for me to listen to this particular show. Sandy, I know what you mean. Sandy, I believe, is the person I was talking to who has recently lost her animal, her favorite. Of course, every animal that you have is your favorite at the time. You never have a favorite animal. because they're so different. They live completely different lives within your same house, the same environment. And animals have emotions. I really believe they do, and they have absolutely different temperaments, different personalities. They are so different, even if you have the same breed. Like now we've got it, although they have similar, because now we have a shepherd, which is a Belgian shepherd, and before we had a German shepherd Rottweiler, so we had the mixed breed. Now we've got whatever we get from the rescue, because we always rescue dogs from the SPCA or animal rescues. So there are similar characteristics, because our current dog, Willy, has some very similar characteristics to our Shepherd Rottweiler mix, because there's Shepherd in her, or him, and there was Shepherd Rottweiler in our Shepherd. So they're all very similar. So Sandy, I know it's, by the way, I told Sandy, I was talking to Sandy earlier, just in chat, when your pet dies, because we suffered a loss of our Chow Shar-pei mix, which they actually call a Chow-pei. They blend the names together. I was feeding her with a spoon. Some of you guys probably remember that. I even took videos of me trying to ground up food into a liquid and feeding her. The last days were very sad, but what happens is, and this is really true, because we've lost 4 dogs. We've never lost a cat yet, because the 2 cats we have are still with us. But we have lost Jody, our Shepherd Rottweiler. We lost Sabra, our collie, who lived till 17. And then we came to Arizona, and we had still another Chow. I'll tell you about her. We had a Chow too in Delaware. So I'll tell you about that. But my thing is, I wanted to tell Sandy is, eventually the deep sadness, which it is very deeply saddening. It is, and I know it because I've suffered it countless times. And it is really sad. It's tremendously sad. It's sadder than losing my wife told me when every time we lost one of our animals, it was sadder than her mom passing away. Because if you think about it, you live with your parents until the age of you getting married. Then typically you don't see your parents quite as often, but you see your pet every single day. So it's almost like your pet is a child. And a lot of people say it is, and we don't have any children. The pet is our child. And when that child dies, that you spend every single day with, especially like a dog or a cat, or maybe less with a turtle, I don't know. But when they die, it's traumatic. It really is. So I was telling Sandy that in the beginning, it is so intensely brutal. And I know it is. It is intensely brutal. But as the days go by, what substitutes the deep sadness becomes memories of the best times you had with that animal. And really it's true, because every time it's happened, and it's happened 4 times, I've been wiped out. But what we've done is we've got another animal from an animal rescue pretty quickly after. I get them quicker because I'm devastated more than my wife is. So my wife always wants a break. But me, I don't take a break. I just go and get another one, because I'm so wiped out and I'm so sad that it's selfish to do this. It would be more selfish if I went to get a dog and then decided it was too soon and returned it. Don't ever do that. If you need the time, take the time. I went every time knowing that if I bring this dog home, this dog is ours to keep. So don't ever, if you're the type of person that is the type of person that will want to replace a pet that's died, and by the way, you can never replace it. You can replace the sadness with happiness. You can do that, but you can never replace the pet that's died. But when you do, if you're the type of person that will have a regret after you bring the new dog home, thinking that I should have spent some time to mend and heal and experience the sorrow, I wasn't ready. If you're that type of person, then please don't get a pet that quickly. For us, it's worked. For me, it's worked to the best. I had to do it this way. So just a little shout out to Sandy, who's having a hard time listening to the show because of a recent passing. So let's see, I've got a call here. Let me take some calls if anyone wants to call. Hey, this is Dave. What's going on? How are you?
Oh, hi, Dave. It's Terry.
Hey, Terry. Hey, how are you? Good to talk to you.
I'm good, yes, David. I have a story, but it was too long to write, type it out.
Okay.
So I wanted to say it on the air. It's so sad to me, David.
Okay. Well, go ahead. Let's hear it.
Okay, well, here's what happened. A friend of mine, let me turn off the television. I'm sorry.
Okay.
A friend of mine was giving up an animal that they had had for 11 years.
11
and
years.
I said, well, I'll take it. It was a little cat. And it was a boy cat, which I had never had a male cat. Anyway, I said, I'll take it without even ever seeing it.
Uh-huh.
Well, yeah, they brought it over, and I fell madly in love. They called it Popcorn. I called him Mr. Tips. He preferred Mr. Tips because he came right away.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, he wouldn't get on the couch. He wouldn't get on the chair. Finally, I picked him up and put him on my lap. And he was uncomfortable, but he fell asleep and he started purring. And so I said, well, this is good. David, he was so, I think he was abused by them. If I went to lift my hand, the cat would, cower and move away. And finally, he got used to me, and he didn't do that. Well, I only had him a year and a half when I noticed that he was having diarrhea. So I took him to the vet, and the vet said, "Oh, he's okay." So I brought him home, and about 2 weeks later, I saw him lying in front of his kitty box. I said, "What's the matter, Mr. Tibbs?" And he just looked at me, Dave. I just started crying. And then I picked him up. I put him in the kitty box. He urinated, and then the same day, I found him lying in front of his food dishes. And David, it broke my heart. It broke my heart. And I said to my niece, I've got to bring him, he must have cancer or something.
Yeah.
So we found out that was it and brought him to the vet, and he was put to sleep. But David, I only had him for a year and a half. And that cat was he broke my heart more than dogs that I had had for like 18 years. Cats that about the same amount of time. This little cat just touched me. I think because I think he was abused for 11 years.
Yeah, well, you know what? My wife and I were just talking about this maybe a few days ago. But, for instance, we got our new dog now named Willy. And I don't think he was abused, but I think he was neglected. And neglect is sort of an abuse as well. If you take
absolutely.
If you take a dog and you stick it in the backyard, you never take it out, you never do anything but just stick it in the backyard, that's kind of abusive. And I think that's what happened with him. So my wife and I actually said, you know what? It's better to have a dog that was not treated well, and then its later years in life it's treated great, versus the reverse. So in other words, you had that cat only for a year and a half, but it was the best year and a half of life that cat ever had at the end of its life. So actually, I feel that that's there. I don't feel sadness in that. I feel like the cat or the dog had the best years of its life at the years of its life that were at the end of its life. So that's kind of the way I feel about it.
Yeah, and I want to say to Sandy, I feel her pain, and I understand. And thanks for letting me vent, David.
Oh, sure. Okay. By the way, it's Dave. I'm less formal than David.
I know. I always say David. I don't know why I do that to everyone.
That's okay. Yeah, be less formal. I'm a Dave type of guy, okay?
Listen, David. Don't give me a hard time. Don't make me come over there. You know how your parents say, don't make me come over there.
Right. My parents always said,
right.
Italian parents say that all the time. Don't let me come over there. All right.
Don't make me come over there.
Right, and then
my father used to say, don't make me stop this car.
Right, and then it's actually funny too, because Italian parents, whenever my mother was mad at me, it was always David. Always the formal David.
Oh, maybe that's why you dislike it.
Yeah, maybe that's why. That's right. All right. Well,
Yeah.
okay, well, Terry,
Yeah.
thanks a lot for calling. Let me see if I got some
Okay,
other
David,
conversations. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, let's see what else we got here. We've got, that was Terry, by the way. Thanks for calling. Animals are like Azariana. I always say Ariziana. Azariana says animals are like people. Each has a different personality. Absolutely, that's very true. Then Azariana says again, all my pets have been rescues. They're like family to me. That's great to get a rescue. Now, the thing, it's funny. Some people don't get rescues. They get them from shelter, or I get them from shelters and animal rescues. And we've gotten our dogs from the SPCA as well. Some people get them from breeders. And I know why people get their animals from breeders is because they can get to know the family, the father and mother of that animal that they're bringing home. They can see the personalities. They can understand the health conditions of those two animals. So I know why they do it. You do take a risk when you get them from the shelter. And we always get dogs that are older than the little puppies. So we get Willy here is 5 years old. Our first shepherd Rottweiler was 6 months old, so he was younger. And our collie was, I think we got her when she was 2.5, if I remember. Then we got a Chow that was actually a Chow. We had a purebred Chow, or at least as pure as we think, and we named her Kim. But actually, I was working from home because I used to work for IBM, and I had a home project. So I'm working from home, and I hear a knock on the door, and it's my next door neighbor who lived across the street from us. And he says, "There's a lady giving away a Chow. Do you want a dog?" And I said, "I've got 2 dogs. I've got a Rottweiler Shepherd mix, which you've seen, and I've got our collie, which you've seen. You've got 2 little Chihuahuas," because I remember he had 2 little Chihuahuas. And I said, "You don't want another dog?" "Of course we don't either." But I said, "But I'll come out and I'll take a look." So I went out to see this Chow in the back of this lady's car. And you can see that it was a Chow. I believe purebred Chow, because it looked pretty pure. And purebred Chows are beautiful animals, by the way. But every animal's got beauty to it. I mean, what's the ugliest? Some people think pugs are ugly, but I think they're pretty cute. Some people think Shar-peis are ugly with all the wrinkles. It's a gorgeous animal, right? Some people think I'm ugly. And by the way, I am ugly. So you don't have to compliment me by saying beauty is in the eyes of beholders. It's not. But so this Chow's in the back of the car. It had about half of its hair scratched out, had fleas and ticks all over it, and it would look like it was about 5 to 8 pounds below what weight it should be. So I reached out to say, well, let me see the dog. So I reached in and I got bit. You're not going to see it on here, but maybe you can. You can see it. Yes, you can. You see this thing here? That is a bite from, how many years ago was that? 1997? I still have the, you can never, fortunately you don't get bit. Fortunately I didn't get bit on the face, right? But I got bit on the hand here. And I remember the next day was when I had the interview. This was before I worked for IBM. Because 2 days later I had an interview at IBM and I had a handful of blood. So I remember I reached in to pull the Chow out. And then I asked the lady, I said, well, tell me what's going on with this dog here. You're trying to give it away? And I said, I got bit now. Do you have the rabies certificate? And they said no. They said it was a dog that's a friend of theirs who has moved from Wilmington, Delaware, which is where we lived, to Dover, Delaware, which is about 40 miles away, 35 miles. And she didn't have any of that. So I said, well, I guess I've got to keep your dog now because I've got to quarantine your dog in case it had rabies. So what happened is, I'm trying to make this story short, right? But since no one's calling, I'll tell you my stories. But so what's happened, if you want to call, by the way, 480-236-2111, it's on the screen. But the rest of the story with the Chow is the next morning, the next morning, I think it was, I called up the SPCA and they came and they picked up the Chow. Because I decided, well, do I really want this dog? Because we've got this Shepherd Rottweiler mix, we got the collie, now I got this Chow that I've got isolated from other 2 dogs. What do I do? So I thought, well, if I bring it to the SPCA like I rescued our 2 dogs, maybe they can find a home for it. So I brought it to the SPCA. Actually, they came and picked it up. And the guy that picked it up, I remember he said the worst dog he ever picked up was a Chow. So he was scared of the Chow. He was from the SPCA. He was scared of the Chow because she looked mean. She really did look mean. So then the next day, I remember I went to the doctor because I was worried about rabies. And he said, well, the good news is in Delaware, we haven't had a case of rabies by a dog that's had an owner for like the last 10 years. So you probably don't have rabies. And he also said, if you need to get a rabies shot, it's not in the abdomen anymore. It's in the arm. It's less shots, so it's less painful. So don't worry about it. But still, it's only like a 99% cure. If you're in the 1% of people that don't respond to the rabies vaccination, you could be the 1% that's dead. I think if I remember that statistic. So I was a little worried that I would be 1 in 100. Maybe I wouldn't respond to the rabies shot if the dog had rabies. So I was a little bit worried. But so the next day, I called up the SPCA, and they told me, they said what they're going to do, because I asked them about the quarantine period and all that stuff. And they said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to euthanize the dog tonight. And what they do is they chop the head off. They send the head, they freeze it, send it for an autopsy, because for rabies to be contagious to another entity or another being or another animal or a human, it's got to be in the saliva. So it's got to be active within the head cavity for the saliva during the bite to penetrate its victim and transmit rabies. If it's in the body itself and hasn't reached the head to be in the saliva, it'll have rabies, but it won't be transmitted. And that's why they quarantine it. I think they said they quarantine it for 10 days. Within that 10 days, it dies. Then it had rabies, because it takes 10 days once it hits the head and the brain for the animal to die. But the true really period of quarantine is a lot longer than 10 days, because rabies could have been somewhere else in the body before it actually moved to the brain of that animal, for it then to be contagious and suffering the conditions of what rabies brings on. So the quarantine period is actually longer than 10 days. But I told him, I said, well, what I'm going to do is I'd like to pick the dog up, and I'll be careful not to get bit again. But I said, I feel bad because I'm the idiot that stuck his hand in there to get bit, and I'm the one that's condemned this dog to being killed and euthanized. So we took the dog home. When I went there, they made me sign something saying that if I ever was going to give the dog away again, I'd have to give it away back to the SPCA for them to liquidate the dog at that point. And I also had to sign something saying that I would never give the dog away to anyone else. But of course, they didn't check up on any of that stuff. They never called me, never came over to see if I still had the dog. So I remember when we picked up the dog, I had 2 leashes, one from Jody, one from Sabra, a real long leash. And I threw the leash. They put the dog put the Chow on the harness that we had that they gave us. And I remember I strung the leash I opened both doors, strung that leash in so I could get to the other side, pull it in, because it didn't want to come with us at all. And my wife is thinking, and I was thinking, oh my God, did we do the right thing here? Because the dog looks like it's going to rip us to shreds. So we got the dog in the car, brought it to the garage. It wouldn't come out of the garage. I'm trying to pull it out of the car. Its head's going back and forth, hitting the side of the door. And I thought, oh my God, this is bad. So I decided to just close the garage, open the car door, let her wander out. Eventually she did. Then I had my wife hold the leash, and I backed the car out. So for that night, she spent the night in the garage. That's why I was confused with Jody. Jody did not spend the night in the garage. But the Chow, because we just got the dog, and it had fleas and ticks still all over it. I didn't know the condition of the dog. I didn't know how it was going to respond to our other dogs. I was taking the risk in doing this. So we left her in the garage that night. Next morning, I got up and I put this front line. It's the thing that removes fleas and ticks. You put that between their shoulder blades, and within like 4 or 5 hours, all the fleas and the ticks are dead. And I'm brushing them out of this dog, and the dog's letting me brush her. Sorry, we have a him now. It gets confusing. Before, we always had female dogs, and cats is our first male dog. So I keep mixing the sexes up all the time. But I remember I brushed her out, got all the fleas and ticks. It was disgusting. There were each ear, and ears of a Chow, they're pretty pointy. They're very different than the Shar-pei Chow ears, which we have, which are floppy, because the Shar-pei has ears that curl down. Chows have ears that stick right up. But I remember there were at least 5 ticks on each ear. That's 10 ticks. It's amazing she didn't have Lyme disease. By the way, I do have some pictures of some of the guys that we've had. I think I do. I thought I had this folder opened. Looks like I don't. Oh, I do. Okay, so I'll show you. By the way, let's start off with some of these guys that Ashley here, Ashley Stanley, who I don't know if she's listening or not, but she sent me a picture of her cat. It looks very much like our cat, whose name is Keiko. But here we go. Did it move over? Yeah, okay, so here we go. This is, let me stop moving my picture. This is Buddy. So this is Allison's cat named Buddy. So I thought I'd share some of the pictures here of some of the cats. So I'll remove this. Let's see. I will show you our first Chow. Well, let's see. Do I have a picture of Jody and Sa? I thought I. Oh yeah. Here's this is a picture of Jody with my wife. And when I took this picture, I knew this would be the most sad picture that I would ever take, because it obviously shows the true love of my wife with our first dog. And this was our very first dog, so of course there's a connection to the very first dog that you get and a love for that first animal. So this is Jody. This was about 2 years before she died. And I believe she had a heart attack. But of course you don't get autopsies, because why would you even do that, right? Once they pass away, is there really a point to having an autopsy to figure out what was wrong with that dog? So let me see. Let me take some of the, before I start doing the same picture more than once, let me delete them from this folder. Okay, so let's see. I will show you here our first dog, Kim. Oh, wait a second. I think I have Sabra here as well, our collie. I tried to make sure I had pictures of all of our guys. Hang on. Where is it? Where is it? I'm glad you guys are patient tonight, because this is not a professionally done show, obviously. I should be prepared for this. What the heck? Looks like I don't have Sabra here. I thought I downloaded all of these pictures. Oh, here we go. Sabra. And it's upside down. Why is it upside down? Especially because it's not upside down in the picture here. Hang on, maybe I can drag it over. I don't know how to use this software to rotate the picture, but what I'll do is I'll drag it over. I'll zoom it up, and I'll drag it over here. Now you can see it. This is Sabra, our collie. When she was a lot younger, so she was smaller. I think at that point she was like 2 years old. This is with the legs that you see there are not my wife's leg. It's the rescue where we got her from when we first met her. So I remember this is the very first picture, the very first meeting of that dog. And I think she was 1.5 years. And she ended up being 40 pounds at full growth. So there's Sabra. And I will show you the very best picture that we ever took of our first dog named Kim. Let's see if this works. Son of a gun, these are not pulling over here for some reason. But what I'll do is I'll make this one large as well. There we go. And it looks like it's too large. See if I can shrink it. There's our first Chow, which was our third dog named Kim. And this dog was almost like a fish. She would never leave the water. It was funny because you can tell that this is a real Chow because the eyes always have this little drip. And it was always cleaning the eyes, the pointed ears of the Chow. Beautiful hair, and this is in our pool. And it's funny, this dog would be in our pool about 4 hours a day. You would actually see her, she would fall asleep and her nose would hit the pool, and then she would lift up because she obviously knew she was hitting the pool. But she would be in the pool like 4 hours a day. Of course, in the midsummer, we wouldn't let her out in 115 degrees. She'd be out like 6 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock in the morning. And then my wife and I tend to swim like 11 o'clock at night in midsummer, so she'd be in the pool like 11 o'clock. But if we let her out in days when it was like 85 or 90 degrees, she'd just go in the pool on her own. Incredible dog, great dog. Really, I missed that dog a lot. She was really a nice dog. See if anyone's got anything else to say here. We've lost some people because they're getting kind of bored here, of course. But let's see. John says, beautiful dogs. Thanks so much. Zariana says, I saw Kim. Well, you saw Kim number 2. You never saw Kim number 1 because she passed away. That was before Kim 2. So she passed away about 10 years ago. Because we had Kim 2, which we named her Kim as well. We had Kim 2 for 9 years. And I'll show you the difference between the two of them if I can pull them up side by side. Well, I can't because I already deleted Kim 1's picture, but here's Kim 2, our Chow Shar-pei mix. Oops. For some reason you can't see this very well. Looks like I downloaded the small picture. This was almost the last moments before we had to put her to sleep, which was very sad. We spent some of the questions I was going to ask you guys, and maybe I will ask the questions now. I was curious about what you guys think about some of the questions I had here. And maybe you guys will call up or type in. But how many of you guys have pet insurance? Because recently our Chow Shar-pei mix, Kim, who has passed away, in an effort to try to keep her healthy and keep her with us, we spent about $6,000 on her via getting her diagnosed with what she evidently had in the end. She had the same thing that actually Eddie Money had. Eddie Money died of esophagus cancer, which they have some name for it that sounds better, but basically cancer of the esophagus. So we had Kim on a variety of medicines. We thought she had phenobarbital syndrome, which was a salivatosis phenobarbital syndrome or something like that, where the salivary glands were pumping up too much saliva because the brain was telling the saliva glands to keep pumping out. So we had her on all kinds of medicine. The last thing we had is we thought she had an esophagus stricture. An esophagus stricture is just like an artery stricture, where the artery closes, the esophagus closes. We thought because she had maybe acid reflux, which scars the esophagus. So we were going to get her an esophagus balloon in there. They put a balloon in there just like they do with an artery. When people have artery blockages, they open up the artery with a balloon. We were going to put her through that surgery. The day we put her through that surgery to bring her in, we brought her in, they did an endoscopy, and they found that she had esophagus cancer deep inside her esophagus. And at that point we decided, well, do we take her home and let her suffer? Or do my wife and I take the suffering away and take the suffering on our own? So we put her to sleep. It was devastating. It truly was. So that's what happened to our Chow Shar-pei mix named Kim. So I was asking you guys, how many of you guys have pet insurance? We have Willy here who's 5 years old, and we have not gotten pet insurance on him. I'm wondering if any of you guys will answer me in chat or call up. Let's see if you got, looks like a bear. That's what Allison says. No one's answered that question. I don't have pet insurance. I don't know if it works. I don't know if it's a good thing to have. We have Willy here, is 5 years old. We've had really good luck with all of our dogs except for Kim. And if we got insurance for Kim when we first got her, because she was 3.5 years old when we got her, she lived till 12. We had her 9 years. If we have pet insurance for 9 years, would the payments have been exceeding the inevitable $6,000 we spent on diagnosing her and trying to get her treated and trying to get her healthy at the last year of her life, actually the last 4 months of her life, where she started getting sicker and sicker? I wonder if the pet insurance would have been worth it. So you guys have not answered that. But a second question I had is, how much would you spend to keep your pet alive if you don't have health insurance? So like I said, I know someone who spent, and this is when before our Kim was sick at all, but I remember I was talking to this guy. I think he had a Great Dane. And I remember he had a lot of health issues. Great Danes don't live that long. They live supposedly about 10 years. And I remember his Great Dane, because we used to go to this dog park where we used to walk our Shepherd, Rottweiler mix, and our Collie, and our Chow, all three dogs. We would walk in this dog park. And he had a Great Dane that actually, the ball he was throwing for the Great Dane to catch, he swallowed the ball. So he had to have surgery on the stomach to get the ball out of the stomach, and it was a pretty large ball because it was throwing it. And so I remember he said in totality he spent like $8,000, not just for that one surgery, but other things as well. And he said he would never do that again. Now we spent I think actually it would approach $7,000 on our Collie, or I'm sorry, on our Chow Shar-pei mix, Kim, to try to get her healthy, and she never did get healthy, and we spent that money. Now, we don't think it was a waste. It was something we did to try to help her out because it was our child, right? But I wonder, do you guys have any limitations of what you would spend on your dog to keep it alive, to keep it healthy? And then you have to think about quality of life. Would you spend that money on a 12-year-old dog? And we did on Kim. We spent that money on a 12-year-old dog, knowing that a Chow Shar-pei mix, actually I didn't know this, but I looked afterwards. A Chow Shar-pei mix, that mixed breed, the life expectancy is about 7 or 8 years, and she lived till 12. And we tried to get her healthy at the age of 12 by giving her all of this medication and surgery and research. So would you do that? Or would you decide at some age you would stop? John says, let's see, let me read some of the other things here. Sandy says, I've never had pet insurance for my pets. And like I said, I haven't either. And I've lucked out with the exception of the last dog that we had, which did have health issues. Now we have a Shepherd, and of course Shepherds have typically hip dysplasia. Now, Willy does not have that yet. But I wonder if we should get it. And I don't know if you can get health insurance for your pet once it's a certain age. Or maybe you can, but then the price is higher, like it would be for health insurance for a human. I don't know. Let's see here. Let's see. Terry says, my nephew spent $10,000 for his cat. She had cancer. David is so sad. Yes, it is. And $10,000, I could see that happening because we spent $7,000. And we were willing to get her. By the way, the surgery that we were going to get her on to open up the esophagus by putting a balloon in there, the vet told us often one surgery is not enough because it recloses. And you have to get another surgery shortly after, and a second effort to open up the esophagus again with the balloon. And it could be 3 or 4 of these surgeries, and each one is like $2,500. So if you multiply that by 4, that's $10,000. And every time they do it, if you think about a balloon opening the esophagus, it's a risk every time you do it because it could stretch to the point where it's going to snap and break, and when it does, it's the end. They cannot do anything to help that dog out. So we brought her in there for the first surgery, but the surgery never took place because she didn't have an esophagus stricture. She had esophagus cancer. So we never could help her out because they even said, well, we can't even get the material down there, the balloon down there to open it up, and it's cancer anyway. We can't do anything. They did tell us because they said, well, what can we do at all? They said, well, we could put a feeding tube from the stomach bypassing the esophagus, and you could feed the dog outside of the body. And I said, well, how long is that going to keep her alive? And they said about 2 months. And they said it would still be painful. And at that point, I thought, I'll take the sadness to eliminate the stress and the sadness and the sorrow and the pain that Kim would have gone through. It was painful for us, but I wanted the pain. John says Amazon gives pet insurance as part of the hiring package. How about that? That's it. I didn't know that. It's interesting. I wonder if PetSmart does that. I know someone who I used to work with who went to work for PetSmart. I would imagine they probably do that. It's great. Azariana, whose name I pronounced right for a change, quality of life is always important. Terry says, does anyone know how much pet insurance is? I have no idea. You'd have to find that out. I haven't even studied that. I have no idea. No idea at all. I imagine it's got to be different based upon the breed. I'm sure that's specifically important. And the age that you're trying to insure it. I don't know if they do a health check at the vet before you can get insurance. I have no idea about any of these things. I had a couple more questions here. Willy's over here sleeping, otherwise I'll let you guys see him. He's sleeping, here's why. It's his favorite toy. This one actually makes noise. And it woke him up. Willy. He's gonna come over here now because he heard this. Willy, this is your toy, right? You see the people here. You want your toy? You were sleeping and you want to play immediately, right? The reason he's sleeping is because I got to burn him out in the morning for about an hour and a half, throwing this ball 30 times. It's not a ball, it's a rubber bone here, which squeaks. The other one that he plays with in the field, I take the squeaker out because I don't want other dogs running up to him hearing this squeak. So this is the inside playing toy. The outside one is blue and it's got no squeaking. That's the one we play outside. But he plays with this for an hour and a half, about 35 throws. And then at night I got to take him again. Before I did the show tonight, I took him out when it was still sunny out, or somewhat. It was sunset. And I threw this thing about 30 times again. And he's nuts. And then after that, he's burnt out now. He's sleeping. But in the morning, he'll be hyper again. If you ever saw him in the morning, he's a nut. Willy, you gonna get this? You gonna get it? I bet I could stimulate him to play. Look at it, he's gonna play a little bit. But he knows this is his bedtime. And then we got the cat over here, Callie, on the chair here. I'll bring her over. She's a calico cat. I'll go grab her. Callie, don't bite me. Now I'm only going to hold her for a couple minutes, and I'll tell you why. Because calico cats can be mean. I can pet her like 4 or 5 times before I get a hiss, then I get a scratch, and I get a bite. You can see that, by the way, when you have a cat that's from a rescue, usually they do trap, neuter, and return, or they'll do trap, and they'll catch it, and they'll try to find a home for it. So you can see here the one ear has a little slice in it, and this is how they really know that this cat has been spayed or neutered because of the slice in the ear here. You see that, right? The other one's normal, so that way if this cat gets trapped, they don't bring it to a vet and say, well, sterilize this cat. They'll know it's already been sterilized, so they'll release it again into the wild if they're doing the trap, neuter, and return. You can see she's getting hyper. She's going to bite me, or scratch me, or hiss, or all three. There we go. You saw it, right? She goes back to bed. And we do have one more cat, Keiko, whose picture I have. But Keiko is one of these cats that she's not going to come on film. But here is Keiko under what's called a kotatsu, which is a Japanese heating blanket, which my wife got from Japan. And what it is on the top here, this is a blanket that goes over a little table that has 4 legs. And on the underneath of this surface here, there's a heating element. So in the wintertime, you can turn this on and put your legs underneath of it, and it stays nice and toasty and warm. And of course, cats like everything warm. They'll sit in front of a refrigerator because the underneath of the refrigerator is where the evaporator unit is to evaporate the water that's in the defrost mechanism. That's why cats are always there. Well, they used to be on top of TV sets when the TV sets were the big bulky things with the CRT in it that built up heat on the top of them. So you can see she loves this little kotatsu thing. She'll be under that thing for about an hour before she comes out because she's heated up and she's like cooked. So, it's a funny cat. Cats are funny. Each one has a different personality. You can see her now deep underneath the kotatsu because she likes it. She likes to really cuddle up under there. You can see her deep underneath that kotatsu. So that's the cat you guys didn't see tonight, named Keiko. Here's another picture of her on the bed. I don't know if I'm zooming this up properly or not. I think you can see her, right? That is Keiko. She's a rescue too. We got, actually, the way we got her is we were walking through this park with our first Chow, Kim, and this cat used to come out from wherever it was for that specific sleeping period, and my wife would bring food and feed this cat every day when we would walk our dog. She'd call the cat would come out, we would feed this cat, and then one time my wife thought this cat was pregnant, so we called these guys from Save the Cats, who were also there feeding the cats, all the stray cats in this one preserve called Riparian Preserve, and we called him up, and he trapped this cat thinking it was pregnant, brought it and found out it wasn't pregnant, and sterilized her. And then he calls us up and he says, well, this cat seems pretty nice. Do you want this cat? And I talked to my wife and we said, sure, we'll take her in. And he said, well, if you're going to take her in, we're not going to slice the ear to acknowledge that it was a rescue that we got and spayed or neutered it. I always forget which one spay and which one neuter is. So they left the ears intact. So that's why you saw Callie, who has a little slice of her ear, but Keiko has no change to the ears because we decided to take her in as a stray cat, and they didn't need to mark it because it's our house cat now. See what else I got here. I'll read some of the other messages. We've been on here for about an hour. Let's see what else we got. Let's see. Looks like my cat Tiger. Yeah, cat. It's funny because when we got our calico cat, Callie, we thought her hair was gorgeous, but her hair is her hair's like mine. It's long and thin, but the cat you just saw, Keiko, with the shorter hair, it's a lot thicker, better quality hair. So to be honest, Keiko is more gorgeous than Callie is, even though Callie's the gorgeous calico with multiple colors. Her hair's not a good quality of hair. It's like kind of long and dangly and gets tangled quite easily. Keiko's hair is perfect. It's pristine. It's got a good head of hair on that cat. Let's see. Allison says she's got to go to sleep because 6 o'clock a.m. comes early. So thanks for joining the show, by the way. Thanks for enjoying the little moments I've had with cats here. And let's see. Good night. Azariana is saying good night to Allison. Good to see you guys. And yes, I'm in Arizona. Azariana, that's where we live here. We live in New Jersey part of the time too, but we're here in Arizona right now because that's where my current work engagement is. So yes, we are in Arizona right now. Fortunately, it got a little bit cooler, except today was 88 degrees, so that's why I had to take Willy out at sunset. About a week ago, this high temperature was cooler, much cooler, below average, by the way, like 78 degrees. So it was great because I could take her out when it was like noon because it wasn't that hot. But 88 degrees, he ain't digging 88 degrees. So 88 degrees, he doesn't want to go out and play ball. Where's he now? Where'd he go? I think he's on his favorite sofa. Yes, he is. Is he on the sofa? And our cat, you can't see her, but our cat Callie right now is drinking from the dog's dish. We have the big dog bowl with water for Willy, and we have the little small one for the cat. Actually, Willy drinks from the small cat dish, and Callie drinks from the big bowl of water that's for the dog. So they switch off. They don't know the perception of what bowl is theirs. Fortunately, there's never any food fights. Let's see, what else do I got here? Let me see, anyone else have anything? You don't need a cat heater. You know, it's not really a cat heater. It's supposed to be our heater for our feet to be underneath it. But what happens is the cat goes underneath there because they like to warm up to a maximum heat in the wintertime. Because we do keep the house cooler in the wintertime. We like our house to be cool, especially at night. We like it to be around 69, 70 degrees, 71. So we keep it kind of cool. Oh, we have another caller here. Let's see who this is. Hey, this is Dave. How's it going?
Hey, how you doing, Dave?
Hey, how are you? Azariana, right?
Yes.
Yes, how are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I haven't spoken to you in a while.
Yeah, since my show got bizarre, you haven't called. Now tonight's a normal night. So what's going on?
Yeah, I wanted to compliment you on the pictures of your animals, and their rescues and stuff, because that's always good to do.
Yeah, we've always done that. And when I was a kid, I wanted to be a veterinarian. And I kind of regret that I wasn't. But I will tell you this, I did some research on veterinarians. And one of the things they suffer from is depression. Because if you think of it, their patients are the animals, the cats and the dogs. And they live for only like 10, 9, 11, 12 years. So they have a lot of patients that are dying because they're vets. And been in business a long time. And it's not like humans, which we can live till 90 years old or 80 years old. Their turnover of life and death is quite quick. So I heard veterinarians suffer from stress and depression a lot. I heard that.
Yeah, well, with everything that they have to deal with, you would think so.
Yeah, they get attached. In fact, when Kim died, she didn't die, we put her down to take the pain away from her from the cancer. The vet was actually very sad because they could tell that we really cared about Kim a lot. And they saw that I was feeding her with like liquid food because I brought the food in, I was feeding her. They saw that I ground it up. I turned it into a jelly so she could swallow it. And they saw our deep sadness. And the vet was very tearful to us. So it's traumatic for the family and the vets as well.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Do you have any pets? Do you have any pets, Azariana?
Yeah, well, I've always had cats and adults, as long as I'm an adult, cats. But when I was little, I had a dog.
Okay. Why did you, when you got older, why did you decide on a cat? Why not dog or why not both?
No, the dog I had wasn't good with my kids. So it was sick. It had a tumor.
Oh.
It was a purebred.
Uh-huh.
And where we got it, it was you paid a lot of money for it, but the breed it was a beagle.
Hmm.
And and that sort of runs in their medical history, or at least in this with this these two beagles or the parents.
Yeah, oh, look at that cat. Did you see my cat in the background playing around with a toy over here?
Yeah, I like it. I like my cat. One of my cats is the same. If you play with him too much, he nips you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Is that right? I can pet her 4 or 5 times, and I'll usually get a hiss, then I get a bite, and I get a scratch. She's in the background playing now. Good theater. See that?
Yeah.
I don't think Willy, our dog. Oh, Willy, I better let one out because I don't think Willy's actually seen our dog, but the cat. Willy, go ahead. Go ahead, buddy. I don't think Willy's actually seen our cat play that wild in an enclosed area. So right now I'm in our bedroom here, and I don't want. I had to let the dog out because I didn't want to have a fight here because I don't think I've been actually introduced them to that level of activity. So I got the dog out. So now we just got Callie here. So by the way, have you had a mix like right now? Do you have 1 cat or 2? How many cats do you have?
I have 2 cats right now.
Are they the same sex, male, female? What's the sexes of them?
I have 2 males right now.
Now does that work?
And they're both.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that works.
Because
Yeah,
I'll tell you one thing. When we have dogs, supposedly, because we were going to get a dog from the Southwest German Shepherd Rescue in Arizona, and when we were trying to get Kim, our first Kim, a friend, they specifically told me, they said, well, if you have a female Chow that you've got, you cannot get another female. It's a lot easier to get a male and female rather than 2 females or 2 males. So now at one point we had 3 animals, so of course we had we had all 3 females, but of course you can never have the 3 mixes there. But so you've got 2 males, right?
Yeah.
And
I have a tiger cat,
Uh-huh.
like the one in the picture that you showed. And then I have an all black Manx cat, and a Manx has no tail. Well, a little bump. He has like a little nub for a tail, and so he's a Manx. So they're both good cats. They're both good cats.
Now, did you get one before the other one, or did you get them both at the same time, or how did you do that? How'd you introduce them? Were you scared when you introduced them?
Oh, when I've always gotten a rescue, I always introduce them. I leave one of the cats either in a carrier or in a room for one night, because you don't know if they're gonna get along. And then like for the first week, I watch them when they're, they're kind of getting to know each other,
Right. We did the same thing. Actually, we had a room and we set up a screen so that they could see each other, and we actually fed them closer and closer so they would see each other eat on either side of the screen. That's what we did for about a week. And then after that, we kind of let it go, but then we still supervised them and watched them. And there were a couple still fights, but nothing vicious, and it worked out pretty well.
Oh yeah. They get along good. My cats get along good.
Yep.
But I've always had rescues, and so I always and so they're spoiled.
Yep. By the way, do you get them from a rescue or from an SPCA? Did you ever go to the SPCA and get an animal, or always a rescue?
No, one of the cats I have here, my girlfriend was moving and she couldn't take the cat, and so I took the cat. And the other, my younger one, my Manx, a neighbor was moving and had a little had a little baby cat, a kitten, and she knew that I helped out a rescue in the area I lived in, and so I said, well, if I can't take the cat, I'll give it to these people that I know, that I work with. So that's what I did. But I ended up keeping them. So.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Yeah. I would imagine it'd be really hard. For instance, I know some people have to give up their pets because maybe they'll have a health issue, or they'll have a child, an infant, but they had the dog before the infant came along, and then the infant comes along, and the dog or the cat doesn't like the infant, and so it becomes a danger to that new child, so they have to get rid of the cat or the dog. That'd be a hard thing to do. We were lucky because we had no children for that issue to take place, but that's got to be a hard thing to do, to give up the animal that probably, maybe it's the guy, he had to college, he's in college, living someplace, he had the dog or the cat, and then he gets married, has a wife, and then the cats or the dog are living with them together, and then suddenly the dog or cat doesn't get along with the child, they have to get rid of it, and the husband or the wife had lived with that animal for years before, and now he's got to separate from it. That's got to be brutal. That's got to be tough.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, that's
one of my first cats, my 22-year-old, the one that I had put in the comments. He was a chocolate point ragdoll Siamese.
Oh, wow!
And I always loved Siamese cats. And he showed up at one of the family members' houses, and she was feeding him, and it was getting cold, and she couldn't keep him. And she didn't know what to do. So, it was either going to be a shelter or I don't know. But she couldn't keep him. So she was so. When I found out, I said, "Oh, I'll look. I'll see if I can take the cat. So we took him to the vet, and we found out that he was like a retired show cat.
Oh, wow!
And of course, he was fixed. He was taken care of. And so his show days were over. So, but he was a very good cat. He lived, like I said, he lived to be 22, and
Wow.
he was a talker, and he was a very good cat.
Yeah, yeah.
Very good cat.
Siamese cats
Yeah.
are. Siamese cats are. Was your Siamese cat very smart? Because my parents had Siamese cats, and they were. It seemed like they had another level of intelligence by this that was better than the normal cats.
Yeah, every time we would give him a bath, he would always vocalize, and it always sounded like a kid.
Yeah.
Like, and he would always say no. And it always was like no.
Right. Yeah, yeah, and you could actually. It's funny because recently our cat named Keiko, the one that looks like the little, the one that has the gray and black stripes. We gave her a bath because I think she had like some kind of a problem with her skin, like itchy skin or something like that. So we gave her a bath. And she went in the bath really easily. Like there was no fight about it at all. We got her in there, we put a cat shampoo on her, watered her down, and there was like no issue with it. If we try to put Callie in the water to give her a shower, man, it's gonna. I can imagine I'll probably come out. I probably won't come out of the shower. I'll be dead. I'll be killed in the shower. I don't think I'd survive that.
Yeah. We've had cats like that, so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
understand.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what else is going on? Do you think you'll get another? Would you ever get? Because I've said this before on other shows, but my parents, they've always had Siamese cats, and about 20 years ago, our last Siamese cat, or their last Siamese cat, died at the age of I think 20. So long life as well. And my father was so devastated that he said he could never ever get another animal, and he never did. And the way I survive it is I always think it's sad, but I can always pass on the helping hand and help out another animal to give it a better life than it had before, because the ones we get are always ones that are abandoned or whatever the case is. So your caring animals that you have, when they pass away, will you have an easy time to get another one? Would you resist getting another one because the sadness is too deep, or how would you deal with it?
Well, I've always taken my time and I've grieved
You do.
for the animal, but I usually around 6 months later I usually end up with another one, whether it's an emergency rescue or not, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking after well, my cats don't get along with dogs, so I can't have a dog. But I was thinking that since I've had cats most of my adult life, that I might want a dog. I don't know what kind of dog, but I might want to go for a dog after my two go.
Now, how do you know your cats don't get along with a dog? Because actually, when we brought Willy in here, because our other Chow got along great with the cats, except he used to chase them around, but they got used to him chasing them around, or her chasing them around. We got Willy here. I was a little bit worried about that. I was worried about it. How do you know your cats aren't good with dogs?
Well, I was taking care of my daughter's dog for a couple of days, and I had not my black one, but not my little one, my black mink, but I had my tiger cat, and I had a few other cats, and that poor dog. They all ganged up on him, and they were jumping him, scratching him, and they wouldn't let him eat, sleep, or do anything.
Wow.
That poor dog was terrorized. So I said, I can't have a dog in the house.
Yeah.
You know, because the cats just don't. They're territorial. You know.
Yep.
So that's the way that's why I come to my reasoning.
Yep. Yeah, I know when we got Willy, because we went to the same rescue we got Kim from. So I went there to get Willy, and I actually had, what happened? I think we had him for like 3 days. And then I was fearful about the cat. So I brought him back to the place and I said, you know what, I'm not sure this is going to work because looks like the cat and him, they're not fighting, but they look like they're looking at each other nasty. So then, fortunately, the place that we rescued him from, they also have a cat rescue in the same place. And the lady that we know pretty well, because we used to bring Kim back periodically to that rescue because the lady that was adopting her out to us really liked that. She said it was her favorite dog that she's ever had there was Kim. And actually, Kim had an eye surgery, so she was like the house dog there for a while. Because Chows have something called eye entropia, where the eyelid grows into the eye. So they have to have surgery to open it up. Chows and Shar-peis have this same thing, so they did the surgery on her. So fortunately, they have rescues there where they have the cats and the dogs. But they try not to introduce the dog to the cats that are part of the rescue because they don't want to traumatize the cats that they're trying to get adopted out. But the lady actually lives on the premises of the rescue. She's like the one that started it, and she was the founder. So she said, well, I've got 2 cats that I live with, so let me bring Willy in to my 2 cats and see what the reaction is. So she brought Willy in. She left us. I didn't go in with her. So she brought Willy in, and she said that she came back and she said, well, here's what happened. Willy approached the cats, and the cats kind of growled at him, and he started barking, but he backed up. So she said there was no aggressiveness between the dog trying to attack the cats. So I think it'll be okay. So we brought Willy home, and sure enough, it worked out okay because we got confidence that at least Willy wouldn't attack and kill it because Willy's a big dog. I'm sure he can do a lot of damage, but cats are pretty tough. They can damage a dog, scratch the eyes out. Yeah, so I kind of think Callie would take care of herself if there was an event.
Yeah, she would.
Yeah.
She would.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all I've got for tonight. I'm going to try to get out of here so I can crank up some sleep before my night ends. Mm-hmm. But thanks so much for calling up. Or did you have anything else to say? I don't want to cut you off. What did you want to say?
Yeah, you didn't need, I was commenting, you didn't need a cat heater. You're in Arizona. It's like, the top.
Oh, yeah. But I'll tell you one thing some people don't know about Arizona, and you do if you watch some movies about the desert. Desert nights cool down quite a bit. In fact, right now, like today is 85 degrees. Tonight's going to go down to 55. It's going to be 30 degrees cooler. And in fact, during the wintertime, our average temperature in the winter in Arizona, in Phoenix, Arizona, is about 70 degrees. But at night, when it's 70 during the day, it's 30 degrees cooler at night. So it's actually 40 degrees at night, 45 degrees. So it's cool here at night, 30 degrees different than the average high.
Well, I've never been there, so I don't know that much about Arizona. And all I see is like the movies and what you see on TV. So
night is a lot cooler. So it's funny because our house here, Arizona houses, if they're newer houses, they're very heat and cooling efficient. So you don't have to really heat up the house a lot. So even at night, when it's 45 degrees, you're not going to use a whole lot of electricity. In fact, our electric bill in the wintertime is like $60, if you can believe that. Now, the summertime, with all the massive amount of air conditioning, it's like $400 for that. So it's a big difference. So the bottom line is, when it's 45 degrees at night, our house is still, even if we didn't put the heat on at all, it's still going to be about 62 degrees. So you put the heat on a little bit, and then it warms up to 75 degrees or whatever, and then you shut it off, and it's like 70 degrees for the rest of the night. So but bottom line is, when it's a little cooler in the house, because we keep it like 68 degrees, the cat likes to warm up and goes under that thing called a kotatsu to warm up. So she's like under there, she's like getting a suntan.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a cute picture.
Yeah.
That was a cute picture.
Okay, well,
all right.
Thanks so much for calling. Nice talking
to you.
Yeah, and I'll talk to you again. I'll try to do more shows like this periodically as well, okay?
Okay, you have a good night.
Hey, you too. Take care. All right, guys, so that's about it. I will end with a couple more pictures that were sent. Here's Mike Johnson. He sent us a couple pictures, one of Luke Skywalker. So we'll put up Luke Skywalker here. Here's his cat, and this is a Bengal cat. These can be expensive cats. Our neighbor actually has a Bengal cat, and he said it cost him $1,500, and he had 2 of them. And he leaves these Bengal cats outside because he said Bengal cats act a lot differently than normal cats, where they want to be outside. They want to be. He can't keep these Bengal cats in the house. And one of them unfortunately disappeared, whether it got eaten by an owl or whether it got maybe stolen by someone that knew that this cat was an expensive cat. But now he's still got one of them, and the one of them he still lets outside. But Bengal cats are beautiful cats. You can see the markings on this cat. So this is one of Mike's cats, and he sent us a picture of another one of his cats. And maybe I can put them side by side here. Can I do that? Looks like I can. And this is Junior Johnson. So he's got 2 of these cats, nice looking animals, and they're living together, obviously, with Mike. So Mike, thanks for sending us those pictures. Let me see, I'll move these away, and let me see if I had any other pictures of cats for this evening. I'll show you a couple pictures that I've got of our family, because I accidentally am in the same. Here's me when I got married. I used to be a good-looking guy. It's my wife and me on our wedding day. And in Japan, by the way, what they do is they go through 3 changes of clothes. They wear their wedding dress, they wear a kimono, and then they dress in street clothes. So you can see my wife's pretty hot. Why is she married to me? So there's my wife, Kiko, whose twin sister is named Keiko, and our cat's named after my wife's twin sister. Of course, our cat is named Keiko. So that's me. We got married. I was 34 years old. Much younger guy, but I didn't get married in my 20s. We held out until I was 34. There's my wife. Pretty spicy, right? Let's see what else. I've got a picture of my mom. By the way, my mom won Miss Atlantic City, New Jersey. And you can see why. Let me see if I can find a picture of my mom. Here we go. I think this is one. There we go. This is my mom. When she was dating I think she was already married to my father, but there's my mom. My wife says she should have been in movies. And she should have been. This is my mom. You can see I take after my father, who's an ugly guy. But this is my mother here. Got some other pictures of her. Here's another one of her on the beach. This is Atlantic City, New Jersey, by the way. I think I have a picture of my father and my mother. Yeah, here we go. You can see I take after my dad. Is the ugly guy. This is my mother's sister, Marilyn. See, my mother's more attractive than her sister. And in the back here is the Atlantic City Convention Center, which still exists today, by the way. This is where they used to have Miss America pageant. And I said my mother was Miss Atlantic City. She wasn't in the Miss America pageant, but she was Miss Atlantic City at around this same time period. And I do, here's a picture here's a couple pictures. My wife loves this picture. She said, this is me. Can I zoom this up somehow? This is me with my father here. I was crying for some reason. And my wife always says, look at your feet. They're at an angle here. And she says I look chubby. I was a chubby kid. I don't know why my father kept feeding me too much food. In fact, my mother says that my father used to feed me too much to get me chunky like this. I didn't want to be recognized as a chunky little kid, but there I am. And here, probably my parents are still alive when my mother passes away. This is going to be a picture that's going to make me really sad. That is a sad picture. It's my mom holding me. But they're all still healthy at the moment, so I don't have to worry about it, right? So I think that's all I got for tonight, guys. Thanks for joining the show. Thanks for checking out all this stuff we talked about with cats and dogs. And thanks for sharing the little views you had of our cats. Keiko now is sleeping on the chair. Let me see if I can pick her up and she can say goodnight to you guys. Kelly, go bite. Kelly, say goodnight. Don't bite me. Don't bite me while you're looking over there. She's going to get irritated pretty quick. And Willie has left the room because, like I said, Callie was playing around there with the little toy on the floor. And although she plays around in the entire house when Willie's around, I'd rather not have them isolated in this small area playing around because we've only had Willie now since July. So it's July, August, September, October. You have to really get to know your animals. It takes sometimes longer than 3 or 4 months to really get to know who they are, what their personalities are, what their limitations are. So if I was doing this show in the full house and Callie was playing around, I let them play around and they could do whatever they want. But in the small room here, I didn't want to expose that risk, let alone having you guys see a trauma take place. So that's all I got for tonight, guys. I'll see you tomorrow night. Tomorrow night I'm going to do a show probably about DeLoreans. I'm thinking about buying this DeLorean. I almost bought one. In fact, I told you guys I bought one. But I had turned that one down because it wasn't as marketed. So I turned that one away. So I'm looking for another DeLorean. And I'm thinking about it. I found like 4 of them I'm interested in. So all the DeLorean group guys are all kind of talking to me, telling me about all the statistics about them. So all the DeLorean people want to talk tomorrow. So I think tomorrow is going to be a car show. If you're interested in cars at all, specifically DeLoreans, maybe you're going to want to watch tomorrow night's show. Who knows? So that's all I got for tonight. Thanks for joining the show, and cheers. And we went on for an hour and a half. Wow. The closing song, and thanks again for joining the show. Cheers, guys.
Do you know the Dave Darren Show? He used to be on terrestrial radio, but he got fired.
Here comes the boss fella now.
Dave Darren.